Holy fucking shit. Okay, so I've been playing this game right here, Manhunt on the PS2. It's fairly old. I think it came out in like 2003. Um, but holy fucking shit. I got this game for like a steal. I got it for $7 off of Amazon with the box and the case and with the disc without any scratches on it. Which normally when I see this game on eBay, it costs like 17, $16, sometimes even 20, and there's not that many copies of it, which is weird because it's a Rockstar game. They're the guys who made Grand Theft Auto. But I found this copy for $7. It didn't have an image, but it said very good quality. It didn't say if it was just the disc, but I assumed that it had the box with it because, it said very good quality. But all the other copies that were listed on Amazon cost like $14, um, even for just the disc. So I'm really glad that I got it for that amount of money. But holy fucking shit! Okay, I've been playing this game. I got through like 6 or 7 levels of it so far, and the entire time I just felt an adrenaline rush while playing it. Like, I don't usually get this way when I'm playing games, even when I play like a lot of shooters and stuff. Like, I play a lot of Toho and CSGO, TF2, things like that. Games that are going to get your blood pumping in some way just by virtue of how many enemies are on the screen. I mean, I love Hotline Miami and Truxton, Radiant Silvergun, Ikaruga, things like that. Um, but horror games are something that I always had a fondness for when I was very young. Um, it was just that I didn't get into them very heavily because I didn't have a lot around. But the few that I did play, I absolutely loved. Um, and this isn't really even a horror game. It's more like a stealth beat 'em up game where essentially what goes on is you're stuck in this prison-esque place where you're on a game show similar to Mad World, which is in like my top 10 games of all time. Um, the difference is that in Mad World you're brawling through hordes and hordes of enemies, a la Dynasty Warriors. Where in this game you have much more of a stealth element, similar to Metal Gear Solid, but with more violence and less stealth. So um, you're in this horrific scenario. It's very dark. There's lots of different weapons you can use to execute your enemies, and health is very important in this situation because there's not a lot of painkillers around to pick up, and the few that are around you have to pick up strategically. So yes, you can just run through and beat the guys to death with your bat or crowbar or whatever it has or whatever you have with you, but in most cases, what you want to do is get the jump on somebody, which means observing their movements, walking behind them, and timing it, and then getting them with the square button. And depending on which weapon you use, you get to see a really cool kill. And I always like using the bag on people because you get to watch them suffocate, but. Um, the bag is only really shows up at the beginning of the game. The nail gun's pretty cool as well, but so as you play this game, there's tons and tons of enemies around, and you have to strategically stealth kill them, but you're not always going to be able to do that, and so you run into these situations where there's limited health. And you can't necessarily kill someone in a stealth way. There's multiple enemies there, and so what you have to do is strategically plan out where you run to, how many painkillers there are, how much ammunition there is, depending on if you're using the nail gun or not, and to evade them in a strategic way to be able to get the most hits on them without taking the most damage, which is difficult. And the very act of seeing that an enemy spotted you, that you can't kill them in a stealthy way, that you can't observe them, pumps adrenaline in you because you know how easily they can kill you. Um, and so playing this game is kind of like this constant push and pull between wanting to kill people in the most savage way possible, running to run through like a badass, while also the enemies being tough enough that you have to work strategically throughout the game. And if you are to work strategically, that means a lot of time hiding in the shadows and trying to evade enemies, which in and of itself feels heightening to your senses because you know if you mess up in one way, you're gonna die. Um, and so I just couldn't put the game down. I just kept playing it more and more, and I was like, oh my god, I'm progressing. I feel so good. And the entire time, it was as if I were tiptoeing throughout the game. It was as if I something inside of me was just brewing, like there was a fire that was afraid it was going to go out at all moments, you know. It was excitement. It was a sense of excitement and of fear. And so it was really, really fun to play the parts that I've played so far. Um, it felt it made me feel stuff the way that a lot of other games can't. And I think this type of experience is exactly why it is that I go to video games, because when you beat a certain enemy, or you beat a certain mission and it was super super hard, that feeling of excitement when you finally beat it, that feeling of achievement, or you know, when you do survive that difficult situation just to get to the next part of the level, and you spend all that time being so scared for your life, it feels good. Like after I put the game down, I just started pacing back and forth, and I was like, "Oh my god, it feels good! It feels good to play this game," you know. And I was just excited. Even after putting the game down, I felt excited. So yeah, Manhunt. It's very, very good. I haven't played the second game. I watched a friend play the second game like 4 or 5 years ago. It was in 2015. So yeah, 4 years ago. I was at a friend's house. One of the few friends I had back then in school, and you know, he had all this PS2 stuff, and you know, we played Flat Out and GTA and a couple other things, Hitman, um, and we turned on Manhunt 2, and I was just amazed by the executions that you could do in that game. The amount of gore and the sheer catharsis that some of them had, how brutal they were. Um, and so I imagine that that game is going to be even better than this game when I play it. But man, this game just feels good to play. Um, I like the soundtrack a lot as well. The soundtrack is really fucking good. I used to listen to the soundtrack like 4 or 5 years ago, just on its own. Like in 2014, it was 2014 that I listened to the soundtrack. So yeah, that'd be 5 years ago. I would just sit there and I would listen to it because I liked the atmosphere of it, and that in itself is very emotional. So, if you have a PS2 and you like high adrenaline, difficult experiences, check this game out. The VHS effects are also very, very aesthetic.